Hi, how are you all? It's me, William 2020. Yep, I've been time travelling and I've come all the way from the 1800s to join you this evening and tomorrow evening, I believe, for the Allingham Festival. Not for everything, just for a couple of events. So don't worry, you won't be getting bored of me. I won't be on for too long. But I want to introduce this little short film that was made back in 2013, I believe, and it's a film about myself, my life in Ballyshannon, and my wife Helen Allingham, and everything that went on and that inspired my poetry, and also how I suppose how I grew up in Ballyshannon, but also how my written word and Helen's artistic endeavours were so prominent at the time, but also how they've lasted the test of time and have been adopted by the Allingham Festival. So I'd like to talk you through a few things about this little short film that I have observed and that I seen happening around the time, and it's a good way for you to get a little bit of information before you actually watch the film. So it's called A Walk with Allingham, and it takes you on a little dander around places that I might have frequented in the 1800s in Ballyshannon. The first thing I should mention, I suppose, it's a film by a group of students from Design at McGee, and I'll go talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. But a lot of designers from the northwest of Ireland. You'll see straight away that there is a quite fabulous actor on here who's playing myself, of course. It's a guy called Terence Mc Eneaney, and he plays the part of myself, William Allingham. And you can see I see some striking similarities that he does have my stature, he does have my very unique walk, and I couldn't have thought of a better guy to play the part of me. And he does a fine job of it. You'll notice as well there's a very familiar voice running through this film. It's Seán McGinley. He's a very famous actor, as many of you will know, but his tones really give some excellent storytelling throughout this film. Seán, of course, and everyone involved in this did this free of charge, and Seán did mention that a good place to record this would be Windmill Lane in Dublin, and he was right. We were when we heard this back, you could see that this was the correct decision, because the sound is absolutely excellent. Speaking of sound, you cannot ignore the beautiful tunes that run through this, and there is four actually that run through this that were composed specifically for my film, to portray me. They were all composed by Oisín McAuley. Oisín is a native of the town and up in Abbey Lands there, and he's based in Boston, in Berklee School of Music there. But he composed these in the basement in his house in Boston, and he supplied four tracks, unbelievably perfectly fitting Seán's dulcet tones throughout the Walk with Allingham. I'm really excited about this because it is a good story of my life back in the 1800s, and brought back many memories for me. It was produced and directed by Padraic Lynch, also from the town, and you'll notice that the script that runs through this has been adapted from Anthony Begley's book, Ballyshannon and Surrounding Areas, History, Heritage and Folklore. Thanks for that, Anthony. So the bit that really is quite effective in this here is the visual content, and this was brought up by the main kind of team, I suppose, that were involved in a 4-day workshop all in around Ballyshannon. And involved in this was Laura Coyle, Mark Cullen, Heidi Elliott, Robin Hodge, Debbie Lockhart, Ciaran McLaughlin, Winnie Tang, and Padraic Lynch. And they all worked very hard for 4 days. Worked hard and played hard, I must add. But they did really grasp what it is a walk with myself, William Allingham, would be back in the time. And you can see there's lots of live action and animation that runs through this as well. So before we get started now, there's a couple of funders that I should mention, I suppose. Most definitely the Allingham Arts Committee give us some help with this. The Abbey Centre Management Group were also involved. Garfield, Weston, put some money behind this, and the Higher Education Innovation Fund also helped to fund this year. So really special thanks to Seán McGinley, Oisín McAuley, Anthony Begley, Michael McLean was involved in this as well. Kilbarn Parish Centre, which gave itself over on the weekend for the students and those involved to help pull this thing together. Thanks also to Cecil Stevens, who supplied loads of content and old memorabilia. Liam Thomas was also involved in there. The House of Stories for giving us a slot to showcase this here. Geraldine Oaks for supplying great costumes. And I'm just thinking, is there anything else that I should mention before I let you sit back and watch the movie? I think that's more or less it. But do hang on until the end of this great film, because my fairies do appear. But I should let you know as well that tomorrow night I'll be on. I'm not sure what time. Maybe we can check the bookings on Facebook, I think it is that you call it nowadays. But I will be introducing some more of the student work tomorrow evening, and I hope to see you there. So from myself, William 2020, until tomorrow, I'll see you then. But please sit back for the next 11 and a half minutes. Feast your eyes on this. Bye for now.
William Allingham is a native of this very town, Ballyshannon. He was born in 1824, just a short walk from here, down the Mall. His family have been in the town since Elizabethan times and have been involved in farming, tanneries, salt works, shipping and banking. William's father, also William, was a merchant. He imported timber, slates, coal and iron, and owned ships that traded from the Mall Quay to foreign lands. Travelling from Ballyshannon was a rare event in those days. Dublin was a long and costly trip. England was a faraway land, and unfortunately many natives left the town, never to return again. No more unpleasant evenings we'll saunter down the Mall, when the trout is rising to the fly, the salmon to the fall. The boat comes straining on her net and heavily she creeps. Cast off, she feels the oars and to her berth she sweeps. Now fore and aft keep hauling and gathering up the clew, till a silver wave of salmon rolls in among the crew. Then they may sit with pipes alit and many a joke and yarn. Adieu to Ballyshannon and the winding banks of Erne. One of William's most influential memories is that of his childhood growing up by Assaroe Falls. The silver salmon shooting up the fall, itself at once the arrow and the bow. The shadow of the old quay's weedy wall, cast on the shining turbulence below. The water voice which ever seems to call, far off out of my childhood's long ago. The gentle washing of the harbour wave, be these sights and sounds around my grave. William was the eldest son of 5 children. His siblings were Catherine, John, Jane and Edward. His mother passed away when he was just 9 years old. He had a keen ear for music, and his interest in literature was encouraged by his aunt Mary Ann and his father William, the manager of the provincial bank. Following a year in boarding school in Killashandra, County Cavan, young William followed his father's footsteps and began working in the bank. He etched a rhyming couplet on the bank's window, which is still visible today over 170 years later. This name's duration shall surpass the hand that wrote it on the glass. William was never cut out to work in the bank, and in 1846, at age 22, he had a very welcome career change. He relished his new role as principal coast officer with the customs. He checked incoming and outgoing vessels. A new lease of life encapsulated the young man's heart and fed his creative soul. The open air was fresh in his lungs, the buzz and natter of the fair day, the banter of the local characters, the rhythm of the balladeers, each experience stored for retrieval in the developing literary mind of this budding poet. He knew his town well, dandering happily down the Abbey, around the Mall, and up along the river to Stonewall and Camlin. He was inspired by the town he so obviously loved. To further feed his thirst for literature, he travelled to London and rubbed shoulders with fellow writers Hunt, Rossetti, Browning, Carlyle and Tennyson. His first book of poetry, titled simply Poems, was published in 1850. The fairies, and the goblin child of Ballyshannon were unleashed on the literary world. William moved to the customs in London. While there, his poem Lawrence Bloomfield in Ireland was published. Even Gladstone quoted William's poem in the House of Commons, and William was awarded a civil list pension of £60 for his poetic writing. The editor of Household Words, Charles Dickens, too was a fan. He said of William's poem George Levison that it was mournfully true and moved him very much. William was beginning to find his way, and his poetry was starting to gain recognition. He left the customs and became sub-editor of Fraser's magazine in London. A significant influence was about to enter his life. Helen Patterson was another creative soul, a talented illustrator and watercolour artist. She was forging her own creative path and was commissioned to illustrate Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd. Hardy was smitten with Helen, and he was not shy in letting her know his true feelings for her. He even wrote a poem to her entitled The Opportunity, suggesting a possible marriage, but Helen had found her true love already and happily married William from Ballyshannon in 1874. He was 50 years of age and Helen was 25 when they walked down the aisle, a union that would inspire both their works in the coming years. This was to prove a good year for Helen and William. He was offered the editorship of Fraser's magazine with a decent salary. Helen's career as an artist blossomed, and her paintings, The Milkmaid and Wait for Me, were accepted by the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition. She became an associate of the Royal Watercolour Society, a rare honour for a woman at the time. Their children were Gerard, Evie and Henry. William was happy and published regularly during this period of his life. They worked together on two works in particular, Rhymes for the Young Folks and a play, Ashby Manor. William's sister Catherine kept him up to speed with events back in home ground. The Allingham family had been busy. His brother John was living in Waterford, where he became mayor. His father remarried, and Edward, Hugh and Lizzie were born, forming a second family. Edward, William's half-brother, was a doctor, but also had poetic blood running through his veins. He published a volume entitled New and Original Poems. Hugh, not to be outdone, wrote a history of Ballyshannon and also kept with family tradition and became the manager of the bank. The final move for William, Helen and the children was to Eldon Road in Hampstead in 1888. William's health was not good and he did not survive a year in their new home. On his final days, he was asked if he had any request. "No, my mind is at rest." Then to Helen he said, "And so, to where I wait, come gently on." On the morning of his death, he said, "I am seeing things that you know nothing of." William passed away peacefully on the 18th of November, 1889. Cremated and Walking, William's ashes were then interred at St Anne's Church on Mullinashee at the top of Main Street in his native Ballyshannon. William requested that there would be no funeral service, and it was 2 years before Helen brought the children to visit their father's grave and to meet their Irish relations. Helen painted whilst on her trip to her husband's hometown and was later to exhibit 13 paintings from her time in Ballyshannon. Even in death, they influenced each other's artistic journeys. Helen's career continued to prosper and has gained in popularity even more so in the past 30 years. Helen passed away in 1926. She knew the value of published work, and to ensure William's place in history, she had her husband's work published further. That's a brief insight into the life of the man and his endearing love for both Helen and Ballyshannon. So what about this town? Has Ballyshannon remembered one of their own sons? Well, in 1968, a young group formed the William Allingham Association to promote the poet. They even attempted to clean the ivy from the walls of Abbey Centre, but had to abandon the project as the ivy was supporting the walls. Grey, grey is Abbey Centre by Ballyshannon town. It has neither door nor window, the walls are broken down. The carven stones lie scattered in briar and nettle bed. The only feet are those that come at burial of the dead. A little rocky rivulet runs murmuring to the tide. singing a song of ancient days in sorrow, not in pride. The boar tree and the lightsome ash across the portal grow, and heaven itself is now the roof of Abbey Centre. There is a bronze bust of William at the Provincial Bank, now the Allied Irish Bank. The Allingham Society was formed in 1978. They successfully cemented his memory by founding a literary festival with poetry competitions for all, which is now an annual event attracting lovers of literature from across the globe. In 2007, the Fair Green was named Allingham Park. The Abbey Centre exhibition area has been named the Helen Allingham Gallery. Allingham Avenue is just past his old stomping ground at the Mall Quay. The plaque in the bridge erected by the townspeople in 1895 is in memory of the Bard of Ballyshannon and recalls his early life in the town. The verse on the plaque was written by Allingham, who wished to be remembered beside the river he so loved. Here once he roved a happy boy along the winding banks of Erin, and now please God with finer joy, a fairer world his eyes discern. St Anne's is a fitting resting place for a man that loved the town. The views of Ballyshannon and the hill of Mullingham inspired Allingham. Mullingham translates as the Hill of the Fairies, and the poem The Fairies is his most popular poem. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. We folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap and white owl's feather.